Hello everyone. I decided to tell you a sweet tale so you can have a sweet sleep. I hope you like it. I recommend that you get comfortable in your beds and enjoy the story. The Tale of Kelliglen the Boatman. Once upon a time, there was and there wasn't. Long, long ago, a sultan had a lovely, sweet daughter and a son. The sultan loved both of his children more than anything and would immediately fulfill their every wish. One day, the sultan thought to himself, I never interfered with my son to prevent him from getting upset or bored. However, when I die, the country's administration will fall to him. For him to be able to rule this country, he needs to be experienced and knowledgeable. Therefore, I must immediately hire tutors to teach my son the knowledge of our time. As soon as he had this thought, he immediately called his vizier and explained the situation. This idea pleased the vizier. The very next day, news was sent all over the country. The most knowledgeable men in the land were summoned to the palace. Only the sultan's son was not pleased with this. In fact, he was upset. Because he was thinking, why should a person put themselves through such hardship? Look, my father doesn't know how to read or write. Isn't he able to rule the country? The people love him just fine. Why should I tire my brain when I can be playing in the maiden, town square, on horseback? Indeed, the thing the prince loved most in the world was galloping and playing on his horse in the palace square. Days passed, and tutors were hired for the prince. Since he couldn't tell anyone what he was thinking, he was walking angrily around the palace garden. Suddenly, he saw our Kelliglen, the bald lad, sleeping under a tree, looking quite ragged and poor. From Kelliglen's face, it was clear he was a good person. The prince shook him by the shoulders to wake him and said, Since you're sleeping on the bare ground here, you must not have a single worry, I suppose. Who are you? He replied, I am Kelliglen, your servant, one of the palace's boatmen. Is there a soul in the world without worries, my lord? But a remedy can always be found for every worry. However, those who don't voice their worries cannot find this remedy, he said. Hearing this, the prince told Kelliglen his worries. Poor Kelliglen could not believe this was a worry at all. Upon this, he said to the prince, Oh, my lord, if everyone's worry was like this, could there be a greater blessing in the world than reading and learning? Hearing this, the prince suddenly grabbed Kelliglen by the shoulders and said, Wait, I have an idea. Since that's the case, you can take my place. How would the tutors know that you are not me? You'll wear my clothes, and on lesson days, I'll order that no servant should enter my rooms. No one will see you while you are studying, and I'll do whatever I want, he said. The prince was very happy to have found a solution to his problem, but since this was a very dangerous task, Kelliglen objected, saying, How can this be, my lord? If your father finds out, he'll have my head chopped off. But the prince didn't listen to him at all and said, Hey, Kelliglen, I command you, if you don't do as I say, I'll have your head chopped off before my father does. Do you understand? Kelliglen was a poor servant. He could not object further. Besides, reading, writing, and learning were the things he wanted most in the world. Kelliglen had also seen the sultan's daughter walking in the garden one day and had fallen in love with her. He was sad because he couldn't see her again. He thought to himself, maybe this way I can see her again, and secretly rejoiced. Days and months passed. On lesson days, Kelliglen would get dressed and ready in the prince's room and wait for the tutors. When the lesson was over, he would go back down to his spot by the rocks. However, he would tell the prince about the wrongness of what he was doing and urged him to change his ways while he still could, but the prince wouldn't listen. One day, when Kelliglen finished his lesson and went outside, he ran into the sultan's daughter. When he saw her, he almost fell and fainted on the spot. The girl's beauty seemed to have bewitched him. Because of her long yellow hair that reached the ground, Kelliglen called her Sorry Kiz, Yellow Girl. Sorry Kiz also really liked Kelliglen in those beautiful clothes. She had never seen such a handsome man in the palace before. He must be one of my brother's friends, she thought, and said, I came to see my brother. Kelliglen collected himself and replied, Your brother went down to the garden as soon as the lesson finished. Every morning at sunrise, Kelliglen would leave his house, get in his boat, and come to the palace. Then he would spend the whole day carrying passengers and would return home late at night. The water where Kelliglen's boats passed was not a river, but a lake. The city was built on one side of the lake. The other side belonged to the palace. Our troubled Kelliglen could not tell anyone about the double-layered worry he now carried, and this worry was eating him up. But Kelliglen did have his confidants. These were the reeds by the lake, the swans, and the boat's oars. Every morning and evening when Kelliglen got into his boat, he would fix his eyes on the shimmering waters of the lake and pour out his heart to them with this song. Pit. The pit has no inside. Kelliglen has no fault. What does the Sultan have? He has all sorts of fezzes. He has a son who gallops horses. He has a daughter who strings pearls. If I could just see the Sultan and ask for sorry kiss. Give that girl, take that girl. Give that girl, take that girl. Kelliglen sang this so often that all the reeds, the waters, and the swans learned the song. Meanwhile, the tutors would send messages to the Sultan every day, telling him that their student, the prince, was a very intelligent young man. The Sultan was very pleased with this. One day, the tutors told the Sultan that there was nothing left to teach the prince, that they had given him all the knowledge, and they asked for permission to leave. As they were leaving, they also suggested that if the Sultan wished, he could invite scholars from foreign lands to test his son, as his son would pass any test. This news terrified both the prince and Kelliglen. When everything came out, the rightly angered Sultan would have Kelliglen's head chopped off. The prince decided the best thing to do would be to go and tell the truth to his father. Before he went, he told Kelliglen not to come to the palace anymore, that he would have him searched for, and that if the Sultan looked for him, he should not show himself. Poor Kelliglen fled in fear and hid at home. The Sultan was so angry after listening to his son that he almost killed him. But sorry Kiz prevented it. Scholars from foreign lands were slowly arriving in the country. Now, who are they going to test? The poor man couldn't sleep a wink that night. The next morning, he had the boats prepared. The Sultan was going to cross to the city side. The lake waited for Kelliglen for hours that morning. But no one came. They had become so accustomed to his mournful song that when they saw Kelliglen wasn't coming, the reeds started swaying, the swans started gliding, and the waters started trembling as they began to sing this song. Pit. The pit has no inside. Kelliglen has no fault. What does the Sultan have? He has all sorts of fezzes. He has a son who gallops horses. He has a daughter who strings pearls. If I could just see the Sultan and ask for sorry kiss. Give that girl, take that girl. Give that girl, take that girl. When the Sultan heard this song, he was so surprised that he forgot all his worries. Then all of a sudden he said, "Let's go to where this song ends. That way, we can also find Kelliglen who deceived me." They got out of the boats where the song ended. The first person they saw showed them Kelliglen's house. The Sultan's men took poor Kelliglen from the room where he was weeping and brought him before the Sultan. Kelliglen knelt before him, and the Sultan said, "Your punishment is death. I will have your head chopped off. You will learn what it means to deceive a sultan." But the wise vizier said that this should be done after the test, because there might not be another young man in the country who could appear before the foreign scholars. Upon this, Kelliglen's execution was postponed for a few days. When the day of the test arrived, the Sultan did not invite those who knew his son to watch the test. Only Sari Kiz was watching from behind a door. She was very surprised when she suddenly saw Kelliglen, because she had seen him in her brother's room one day and had been in love with him ever since. Kelliglen gave an extraordinary performance during the test that day. The Sultan was pleased that he had not been disgraced and was also happy that he had not killed such a smart boy. When the hall emptied and only the Sultan, the vizier, and Kelliglen were left, Sari Kiz entered and begged her father to spare Kelliglen's life. The vizier was thinking the same thing. Upon this, the Sultan said, "Oh, Kelliglen, I see that you are a man needed for this country. I forgive you. What do you wish for from me?" Kelliglen could not believe what he was hearing. He knelt down and said, "Thank you, my Sultan," but he couldn't say the rest. But the Sultan understood. He looked at his daughter and then at Kelliglen and smiled. They reached their desires, and may we reach ours too. Good night, my dear friends.